I thought it was quite fitting that I was able to see Neil Young on the very last day that I did my countdown. So I did 5 parts and finished that fifth part, and then left like probably a half hour later for the show. And this was on July 20th, so it was last Thursday. I had read some reviews. I had read, well, I guess maybe, I mean, it's more like message board reviews. I don't know if I read any full blown like newspaper type published reviews, but I read a lot on message board just trying to get an idea like what he was playing. I knew he was digging pretty deep into his catalog, and I wanted to make sure that I kind of got an understanding of what he's going to play. I want to make a mix for my girlfriend who's not quite as into Neil Young as I am, and just make sure that we're both kind of familiar and knew what to expect with what he's going to play. So I knew he was digging deep. I knew he was going into the 90s records a little bit and was not just playing a greatest hit set. Although I can't say that anytime I've ever seen Neil, he's played just a greatest hit set. But I guess what one might suspect or expect from Neil at this point, after putting out 2 or possibly 3 records, two I think, since he toured, was that he would just tour those 2 records. But Crazy Horse wasn't available. He did a solo tour, and he was, he's preparing for Archives 3, which is the 90s. I think it goes into the 90s at least. Starts with, I believe it starts with like Rust Never Sleeps and goes into the 80s and possibly the 90s. But I know those 90s releases are getting re-released. Freedom, Ragged Glory, Weld, Arc, all in a box, I think next month. So this stuff is coming. He's obviously been listening to that part of his past, and I really like that part of his past. That's kind of what got me into Neil Young, or a lot of it. So I was really excited about that. Um, but anybody expecting somebody, Neil Young, a guy, old guy on a stool playing acoustic guitar, would be pretty surprised it was nothing like that. He didn't sit down one. Well, he did sit down when he played the piano and the organ, but there's a guy that moved around a lot. The set list is behind me. No, this is not something I got from the show. It's something I made up myself. But he moved around a lot. Most of the show, he had a harmonica in his holder with a mic on it, so he's kind of singing through the harmonica mic and playing. Especially those first several songs. He opened up with "I'm the Ocean," which I absolutely love, off Mirrorball, one of my favorite '90s era Neil Young songs. And it just seems so fitting now too with some of the lyrics. People my age, they don't do the things I do. Absolutely loved it. It sounded great. It went into Home Fires, which is kind of a more rare outtake song from the '70s. Then into some songs that you'd expect, like "Burned" and "On the Way Home." But those first several songs, yeah, he was playing acoustic. He was walking around, standing up the whole time, singing through that harmonica mic and playing a lot of harmonica. Now, this wasn't as clean of a show, sound wise, as a Massey Hall. I mean, yeah, he could be a little sloppy sometimes, especially on the harmonica, but the spirit was there the whole time. It felt like you were in the room outdoors, but you were in the same space as an old friend. It felt like being in communion with an old friend. That's kind of what it felt like. The song "One of These Days" kind of comes to mind for that. This nostalgic song of Harvest Moon, where he's looking back at old friends and stuff. And I just kind of felt that song kind of came to mind with the evening. But some songs, like "If You Got Love," I think was an outtake from around Trans. I think it's actually the song that was printed on the back of the record. I wasn't familiar with it, but I really liked it live. "A Dream That Can Last" was unbelievable. So good. It was just him on a piano, and it was quite moving. It's a song that closes "Sleeps with Angels," and it just sounded so good. It sounded like it could be up there with "After the Gold Rush" or something. I never expected to really hear that song live. To be honest, coming at the very, very end of "Sleeps with Angels," it wasn't a song that I paid too much attention to. I always liked it, but I never thought of it as something I would ever hear live. But wow, it was really, really cool. I would love it if and when he tours in the future, if maybe he keeps that one. It was a really nice treat. He did do "Birds" off of "After the Gold Rush." He did more songs that are familiar, as you can see from the set list, than probably people thought he would when he said he was going to play just a bunch of rare old stuff. My Heart sounded really good too, off of Sleeps with Angels. That's a song that begins a record. For me, my holy shit moment was when he strapped on an electric and started to play Vampire Blues. I was not expecting that. I knew he did some On the Beach material, especially that song, but I didn't expect it to be electric and just him. And it sounded really good, and I loved it. I loved every bit of it. He was in fine voice overall. I mean, really, like his voice is probably the strongest thing. You could say like, well, he might be a little sloppy on guitar, and adding some extra notes on a harmonica and maybe some flourishes on the piano that didn't quite work. But vocally, the guy was so, his voice sounded really really strong, especially live. I've watched some of the videos I've taken, and like I don't, they always sound different. They don't sound as good when you listen to them. Recordings of live shows, but live, that voice sounded really 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 strong. Primal Life, another electric song he did. I think he brought out Old Black for that one, which is a real treat. When I Hold You in My Arms, that's a song off of a record called Are You Passionate? One of my least favorite Neil Young records, but that song sounded very, very good live. Quite a romantic song, and yeah, it just sounded really good. Some classics there in a row. I Am a Child, Mr. Soul, both sounded really great. Mr. Soul, I think he did on the pump organ, which was just a super cool looking old organ, and that sounded really good. Stage setup was kind of interesting. He had like I think two pianos and that pump organ, and he had like a kind of a fake fireplace on stage, and a big sign that said "Love," and yeah, it was great. When he played Ohio, that's a song I never think that I want to hear live, but I remember when I saw him in 1997 with Crazy Horse, it was just one of them I talked about the most. And last Thursday, Ohio was again just such a good song live. Played it electric, had a lot of emotion behind it. A lot of these songs too, I think he chose for the lyrics. I mean, if you can read into a lot of these and kind of know where Neil stands politically and where we are as a country and world. Several times throughout the show, he would yell out, "What's your favorite planet?" And everybody yelled back, "Earth," which is kind of fun and paid off in a few songs. I'll get to that in a second. But Don't Forget Love was off Barn. I think it was a closing song or the second to last song on Barn. Sounded very, very good. Heart of Gold, not a song I necessarily want to hear live, a song that most people would say is way overplayed. Sounded very, very good. I was really happy he played it. It just sounded great. Comes a Time, same thing, sounded really, really strong. Then he did a little encore, came back, and Love Earth was done where he really wanted our full cooperation, the audience, to say Love Earth, along with him. And it worked, and he was like, it just kind of worked. Everybody seemed really into it. It was just kind of fun to sing along with them, actually. Four Strong Winds was very strong. The song off of the cover song off of Comes the Time, and he left, and I think a lot of us thought that was it. And the house lights flickered a bit, or they came on. I thought it was over. We started to kind of get up. We had excellent seats, by the way, too. It was a real treat to be up really close to Neil. And got him through his archive site. And then he did come back, and I think this song was the first time he played it on this tour, Homegrown, and I think it's the first time that he's done 2 encores too, which is a real cool thing for him to do. Homegrown sounded great. Again, just kind of knew it was the last song, so I just kind of took it all in and appreciated seeing this master songwriter and part of my life for so long play his songs. And post-COVID, it meant a lot, and I really hadn't seen him live, I guess, since 2015, which wasn't that long ago. I saw him with Crazy Horse, but hadn't seen him acoustic or solo, and this wasn't just acoustic, but hadn't seen him solo since 1999 on the tour for Silver and Gold. And it was a kind of a really cramped theater experience, but I remember being kind of lukewarm on it. He sat down the whole time, and he seemed much older then, really, than he did last Thursday, moving around and playing the set that he played. Not that he seemed older then, but it was something you would expect. Like I was talking about, an old guy sitting on a stool playing acoustic guitar, and yeah, last Thursday was not that. Just a really good show. It was really really cool to see him, and you know, having him be part Uncle Neil, you know, part of my life a lot more than I ever thought he would in the last couple of years, putting out releases constantly, part of all of our lives. If you're listening to this, it's just really cool being in the presence of him, and yeah, I would definitely go see him again. He still knows how to bring it, and you could tell he really liked being there. So that's my Neil Young review. Hopefully, I didn't spoil anything for you if you're going to a show. Although I think he's winding it down. I think he's got a couple more days, if that, left, unless he expands and goes to I don't know, out east or the Midwest or something. But or Europe. I think he's talking about going to Europe. But anyway, that's my review. Hope you liked it. Excellent show. Again, Mirrorball. Maybe I didn't mention. Mirrorball had 2 songs off of it. Sleeps with Angels had 3, and it was just a really cool thing to see that era represented. But thanks everyone, appreciate it.